Alright, this is going to be the very last video for lesson 1. This specific problem can be helpful for number 11 if you've gotten stuck with that one, but it's also just a really good, example that summarizes everything that this lesson talks about. So, in this example, we have this diagram where we have these three expressions that represent angle measures. Typically, if you want to try to find the value of a variable, you can't really start to combine variables that don't belong together. So like here, this has a y, these both have x's, so I'm just going to ignore the y for now. So my thought process should be, how can we use these values for x, or these expressions with an x, to try to figure out what x should be? Well, we should remember that with these two angles here kind of form this straight line right here. So that means that these two angles are a linear pair, which means that they're supplementary, which means that they add to 180 degrees. So first step that we want to do in this problem is basically add these angles together and set it equal to 180. So again, because these angles form a linear pair, they add to 180. So the setup would be 5x minus 17 plus 3x minus 11 equals 180. Simplify the left-hand side, so we'll have 8x minus 28 equals 180. And then we can solve this. So I would add 28 to both sides to get 8x equals 208, and then divide by 8, and now we got x equals 26. So we have x equals 26, and now we want to try to figure out what y should be. So we have x, we're trying to figure out y. Now, in order to figure out what y is, we need to be able to figure out what these actual angle measures are. So that's kind of the first step here, is basically plugging in x to figure out what each of these angles are. So in this case, there is a couple methods that we can take to solve this. I like to just stick with vertical angles, because remember, vertical angles are always equal. So we know that when we're working with vertical angle problems, we just have to set them equal to each other and then solve for a variable. Now, so in this case, we should be able to plug in x, 26, into this expression to get 113 degrees. So if this expression right here, if this expression right here is, or this angle is 113 degrees, then this whole angle right here, represented by this red arc, this whole angle is 113 degrees. So we know that if we take 113, so if we take this angle, which is 2y plus 5, and we add it to this 90 degree angle, it should be equal to 113 degrees, because it should be equal to this angle right here, because these are vertical angles. We can kind of just ignore this ray right here. So that would be our setup here, is 113 equals 2y plus 5 plus 90, because we have a 90 degree angle here. So then we just solve this for y. So add 90 and 5 together and subtract 95 and then divide by 2. Y has to be 9. Now, another alternative method for this problem, let's see here. So first, we would solve for x the same way. These two angles form a linear pair, so we would add them together, set it equal to 180, solve for x, and we should get x equals 26. Now, if x equals 26, again, you can kind of plug in to figure out what each of these angles should be. We know that this angle is 113, so this whole angle right here should be 113. So we could do the same thing as what we did on the last slide. 113 minus 90 should be what this angle is. So whatever that is left over, we set it equal to this expression and then solve for y. The other method that we could do is recognize that these three angles together kind of form this straight line. So if angles form a line, that means they have to add up to 180 degrees. So we should know that 67 plus the 90 degrees, 67 plus this 90 degrees plus this 2y plus 5, all three of those angles added together should equal 180, because that's the angle measure of a straight line. And then we could solve it using this method. So combine like terms on this side, we'd have 2y plus 162 equals 180. Subtract 162 on both sides, and then we should get y equals 9 again. So these particular problems, this example may be a little bit more, complex, but we're still using all the same ideas of vertical angles are equal or congruent, and then linear pair or angles that form a straight line have to add up to 180 degrees.